Have you ever thought your Uber driver might be hiding a dark secret? Brace yourself as we unravel the chilling events of one fateful night in Atlanta, Georgia, that left me questioning everything. It was a regular Friday night in Atlanta, Georgia, on March 8, 2024. After a long week at work, Sarah Mitchell decided to meet up with some friends downtown. After a few hours of fun, it was time to head home. Little did I know, the Uber ride I was about to take would turn my world upside down. I stepped out of the bustling bar, the night air cool against my skin as I pulled up the Uber app on my phone. The streets were alive with people, laughter echoing off the buildings. Within a few minutes, I got a notification. My driver, a man named David, was 2 minutes away. David's profile showed a clean-cut, middle-aged man with a friendly smile. His car, a black Honda Accord, pulled up to the curb right on time. I slid into the back seat, greeted by the faint smell of air freshener and the sound of soft jazz playing from the speakers. "Good evening," David said, glancing at me in the rearview mirror. "How's your night been?" "Not too bad," I replied. "Just heading home now." We made small talk as we drove through the city. David was polite, asking about my work and weekend plans. He mentioned he'd been driving for Uber for a few years now and enjoyed meeting new people. Everything seemed perfectly normal. But as we moved away from the city lights, I noticed David's tone shift slightly. He started asking more personal questions, ones that felt a bit invasive. I brushed it off, attributing it to his curiosity. "So, do you live alone?" he asked, his eyes briefly meeting mine in the mirror. Yeah, just me," I said, feeling a twinge of unease. "Must be nice to have your own space," he replied, a strange smile creeping across his face. The route David was taking seemed familiar at first, but soon, I realized we were heading in the wrong direction. I pulled up the map on my phone, noticing we were miles off course. "Hey, I think we're going the wrong way," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. David glanced back at me, his smile gone. "Don't worry, I just know a shortcut." An uncomfortable silence filled the car. My heart began to race as I considered my options. Should I confront him? Should I jump out at the next stop? Before I could decide, David spoke again, his voice eerily calm. "You know, sometimes I take these detours to show my passengers something special. A place not many people know about." My pulse quickened. "I really just want to get home," I said, trying to sound firm. David's eyes met mine in the mirror again, and this time, there was something sinister in his gaze. "Don't worry," he said. "We're almost there." My heart pounded in my chest as we continued down the dark, unfamiliar roads. The bright lights of the city were now a distant memory, replaced by the dim glow of streetlights casting eerie shadows. I clutched my phone tightly, my mind racing with thoughts of what to do next. "David, seriously, I think you need to turn around," I said, my voice wavering slightly. He didn't respond immediately, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. After what felt like an eternity, he finally spoke, his tone unsettlingly calm. "Relax, we're almost there." The words did nothing to ease my anxiety. Instead, they heightened my sense of dread. I watched the landscape change from city streets to more secluded, residential areas. My thoughts drifted to the stories I'd heard of people going missing after getting into the wrong car. Was this one of those moments? I decided to take action. Pretending to text, I quickly sent my location to a friend with a message that read, "In an Uber, something feels off." I hoped it would be enough if something went terribly wrong. As we rounded a corner, David slowed the car and turned onto a narrow, dimly lit street. The houses here were sparse, and the few that I could see were dark, as if everyone had already gone to bed. My sense of isolation grew. "We're here," David said, pulling up to a house that looked abandoned. The windows were boarded up, and the yard was overgrown with weeds. "What is this place?" I asked, my voice trembling. David turned off the engine and twisted around in his seat to face me. His friendly demeanor was gone, replaced by a cold, calculating stare. "This," he said slowly, "is a special place I take people who need a little guidance." Panic surged through me. I tried to open the door, but it wouldn't budge. David reached over and locked the car doors, his eyes never leaving mine. "You see, sometimes people need to be shown the right path," he said, his voice low and menacing. I was trapped. My mind raced as I tried to think of a way out. Should I scream? Try to break a window? The options felt limited and dangerous. Just as I was about to make a desperate move, David's phone rang, the sound piercing the tense silence. He glanced at the screen and cursed under his breath. "Stay here," he ordered, unlocking the doors and stepping out to take the call. I didn't waste a second. As soon as he was out of the car, I threw open the door and ran, my feet pounding against the pavement as I darted down the street. I didn't look back. I just ran, fueled by pure adrenaline and fear. My breath came in ragged gasps as I sprinted down the dark street. The fear of being caught fueled my legs, pushing me to run faster than I ever had before. My eyes darted around, searching for any sign of help, but the neighborhood was eerily silent and empty. I glanced back over my shoulder, half expecting to see David chasing after me. To my relief, he was still by the car, arguing with someone on his phone. But I knew it was only a matter of time before he realized I was gone. As I ran, I saw a faint light up ahead. It looked like a small convenience store, its neon sign flickering weakly in the darkness. I made a beeline for it, hoping that someone inside could help me. I burst through the door, startling the elderly man behind the counter. "Please, you have to help me," I panted, my voice shaking. "There's a man outside, and he's trying to." Before I could finish, the man's eyes widened in alarm. He quickly came around the counter and locked the door behind me. "Calm down, young lady," he said, his voice steady but urgent. "Tell me what's going on." I quickly explained the situation, my words tumbling out in a frantic rush. The man listened intently, nodding as he processed my story. "We need to call the police," he said, reaching for the phone on the counter. Just then, the bell above the door jingled as someone tried to open it. The elderly man and I both turned to see David standing outside, his expression dark and furious. He banged on the glass, shouting something I couldn't make out. "Stay behind the counter," the man instructed me as he dialed 911. I crouched down, my heart pounding in my ears as I heard him relaying the situation to the dispatcher. David continued to pound on the door, his face twisted in anger. "You can't hide in there forever," he shouted, his voice muffled by the glass. "Come out, and we'll talk." I shook my head, tears streaming down my face. "Please, hurry," I whispered, praying the police would arrive before David found a way inside. The minutes felt like hours as we waited. I could hear the man trying to keep me calm, but his words were a blur. All I could focus on was the growing fear that David would break through the door at any moment. Finally, the sound of sirens pierced the night air. David's face fell as he realized the police were closing in. He backed away from the door, casting one last furious glare in my direction before disappearing into the darkness. The sirens grew louder, their wail cutting through the tension like a knife. Moments later, 2 police cars screeched to a halt outside the convenience store, their lights flashing red and blue. I felt a surge of relief, but my body remained tense, adrenaline still coursing through my veins. 2 officers, one male and one female, quickly exited their vehicles and approached the store. The elderly man unlocked the door to let them in, his face etched with concern. "Are you okay, miss?" the female officer asked, her voice calm and reassuring. "I think so," I replied, my voice trembling. "He's out there somewhere. He was trying to get in." The male officer nodded and spoke into his radio, calling for additional backup to search the area. Meanwhile, the female officer guided me to a chair behind the counter and took my statement. I recounted everything: the eerie detour, David's strange behavior, and the terrifying moments leading up to my escape. As I spoke, the male officer stepped outside to confer with the other officers who had arrived. They spread out, flashlights cutting through the darkness as they searched for any sign of David. "You did the right thing coming here," the female officer said, giving my shoulder a reassuring squeeze. "We're going to find him." After what felt like an eternity, the male officer returned. "We've searched the immediate area, but there's no sign of him," he said grimly. "We'll keep looking, but for now, we need to get you somewhere safe." The officers escorted me to their patrol car, the bright lights of the store fading as we drove away. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, my eyes darting nervously to the shadows outside. At the police station, I was given a blanket and a cup of hot tea. The female officer, whose name was Officer Harris, stayed with me, making sure I felt safe. She explained that they would be conducting a thorough investigation into David and the incident. As the hours passed, I spoke with detectives, providing as many details as I could remember. They assured me that they would find David and bring him to justice, but the fear lingered. I kept replaying the night's events in my mind, wondering how close I had come to a much worse fate. By the time the sun began to rise, I was exhausted, both physically and emotionally. Officer Harris offered to take me home, but the thought of being alone in my apartment was too much to bear. Instead, I called a friend who lived nearby, and she agreed to let me stay with her for a few days. The next few days were a blur. I stayed with my friend, grateful for her comforting presence. Despite her reassurances, I couldn't shake the lingering fear that David might come looking for me. Every time a car passed by or someone knocked on the door, my heart would race. The police kept in touch, updating me on their search efforts. They had traced David's profile on the Uber app, but it turned out to be fake. The car was stolen, and his real identity remained a mystery. This revelation sent a new wave of fear through me. If they couldn't find him, what was stopping him from trying again? One evening, while I was sitting on the couch with my friend, there was a knock at the door. My heart leapt into my throat. She went to answer it, and to my immense relief, it was Officer Harris. She had come to check on me personally. "We're still looking for him," she said, sitting down across from me. "But I want you to know we're doing everything we can." I nodded, appreciating her efforts but still feeling the gnawing anxiety. "What if he finds me?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "We're not going to let that happen," she said firmly. "In the meantime, we're recommending you take some precautions. Change your routine, maybe stay with someone else for a while." I agreed, knowing it was the smart thing to do. My friend offered to let me stay as long as I needed, and I decided to take her up on it. The thought of returning to my apartment alone was too overwhelming. Over the next few days, I tried to resume some semblance of normalcy. I went to work, but my concentration was shot. Every time someone came into the office, I jumped. My coworkers were supportive, but I could tell they didn't fully understand the depth of my fear. One night, as I was lying in bed, I heard a noise outside the window. My heart pounded as I crept to the window and peeked out. There, in the shadows, I thought I saw a figure watching the house. Panic surged through me, and I woke my friend, who immediately called the police. By the time the officers arrived, the figure was gone. They searched the area but found no sign of anyone. I felt a mixture of relief and frustration. Was my mind playing tricks on me? Or was David really out there, watching and waiting? The incident outside the window left me on edge, my anxiety reaching new heights. Each day was a battle to maintain some semblance of normalcy. My friend continued to be a pillar of support, but even she couldn't fully ease my fears. The police increased their patrols in the area, but it felt like a temporary fix for a permanent problem. I decided to see a therapist, hoping that professional help would make a difference. The therapist, Dr. Lawson, listened patiently as I recounted the events of that night and my subsequent fears. "It's understandable to feel this way after such a traumatic experience," she said. "But we'll work together to help you regain a sense of control." Despite her reassuring words, the fear persisted. I found myself constantly looking over my shoulder, jumping at every unexpected sound. My sleep was plagued with nightmares of David finding me, his sinister smile haunting my dreams. One afternoon, a few weeks after the incident, I received a call from Officer Harris. "We've had a breakthrough," she said. "We think we've identified David." My heart raced. "Really? Who is he?" We traced the stolen car to a man named Michael Davis. He has a history of mental illness and a criminal record. We're bringing him in for questioning. Relief washed over me, but it was tempered by a lingering sense of dread. "Do you think he'll come after me again?" "We're taking every precaution to ensure your safety," she assured me. "But it's important to stay vigilant." Michael was arrested and charged with multiple offenses, but the resolution brought little comfort. The fear that he might return someday never truly left me. The experience had changed me, leaving a permanent scar on my psyche. I eventually moved to a new city, hoping that a fresh start would help me heal. The change of scenery did help, but the memories lingered. Every time I got into a car, I felt a pang of anxiety. I found myself avoiding ride-shares altogether, preferring the safety of public transportation. The incident made me realize how fragile our sense of security can be. It could happen to anyone, anywhere. As much as I tried to move on, the fear remained a part of me, a constant reminder of that terrifying night. In the end, the experience taught me to trust my instincts and be cautious. It's a lesson I wish I hadn't had to learn the hard way, but it's one that will stay with me forever. As I continue to navigate life, I carry the unresolved trauma with me, hoping that one day, I'll truly feel safe again. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like this video. Subscribe to Shocking Tales for more gripping, real-life stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Comment below to share your thoughts on this story and tell us about any of your own unexpected life-changing encounters. We love hearing from our community. Join us on this journey through the intricate maze of human emotions, relationships, and life-changing moments. Every story sheds light on the depth and complexity of the human experience. Until we meet again, cherish every moment and the stories they weave in the tapestry of life.